Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a rainy day here in Southern California, in Long Beach. We're here for another episode of Torah Study with Rabbi P. I'm glad everybody is here today. Give a little shout out to our friends in those Facebook groups. Say hello. Hello. There you go. You see, so I'm not here alone. Get people think, you're alone, Rabbi. I'm not. I have some people that have come. I don't know why, but they seem to enjoy it. So let's continue. So we've been, for the past number of weeks, talking about a narrative of the Jewish people. It started out with our patriarchs, with Abraham, and then passed on to Isaac, and then to Jacob, and all the drama in the Jacobson clan that happened with Joseph, his brothers, Jacob, and his father-in-law. And that ended the first book of Genesis, and then we picked up the narrative when the Jews already are in Egypt. They're growing, they're strong, they're powerful. A new Pharaoh arises, he enslaves them, and it becomes very bitter for the Jews. God picks this one individual that's sitting out in the desert minding his own business. He appears to him in a burning bush, as we talked about. And then he says to him, I want you to go down and get the Jews out of Egypt. This fellow by the name of Moses says, me? What? Who? What? When? Where? Finally, after a number of different debates going on between them, Moses agrees, goes down. Pharaoh, of course, is obstinate. Why should he give up the good thing going, right? I mean, wouldn't you? If you had a company and didn't have to pay anybody working there, would you wouldn't give them up either, right? But eventually, after the blood and the things that we expected last week, he finally lets them go. Now, before he lets them go, which is going to be the 10th plague, which is going to be the death of all of the firstborn, he throws in a wrench here, okay? And that's chapter 12 of the book of Exodus, okay? So if anybody wants to follow along in the things, you don't have to, but if you want to follow along, it's on page 349. So God says to Moses like this, look, one more time, I'm going to do one more thing to Egypt, and then they're going to let you go. There's no ands, if, or buts. That's going to be it. You're going to be out. But here's the thing. Before we do that, what I want you to do is, I want you to, number one, I want you to establish what we call a calendar. You're going to have, if you're going to be a free people and you're going to go into your own land and you're going to establish a civilization, you need what we call a calendar. Because there's going to be a lot of holidays, things that, we don't. So how do you make a calendar? So he tells him that this month that we're in right now, the month of Nisan, this is going to be the first month of all your months. Now you have to pay attention to this because it gets a little complicated. Okay? So Nisan is the first month of the months, meaning that when the Torah says, like for example, on the first month, the 14th day, you shall eat matzah, which month are we referring to? Nisan. If the Torah says to us on the 7th month, the first day you got to blow the shofar, what is it? Tishrei. Because Tishrei is the 7th month after Nisan. And this near Sivan Tammuz of El Tishrei. If it tells us the 8th month, that's going to be Cheshvan. Okay, so Nisan is always the first month because in the Torah itself there's no names of the month. It only counts them by number. First month, second month, third month. So Nisan is always the beginning of the months. Years, on the other hand, start from Tishrei. Okay, so when we say 5785, what is the first day of the new year? Rosh Hashanah. But that's only for years. Years are controlled by the sun, months are controlled by the moon. Okay? So you have to keep that. So in Judaism, we have a two-tier system when it comes to the calendar. The months are controlled by Nisan, the years are controlled by Tishrei. Right now, we're interested only in the months. Forget about Tishrei and the years, in the months. So God tells him, hey, before you do anything, I want you to establish a calendar by making Nisan the first of all of the months and everything that's going. And how are you going to establish that? How are you going to know what to do? So every time a new moon appears, you establish a new month. And then, I'll tell you, Moses, that during the whole cycle, there's going to be 12 months in the year. Okay? So every month it's going to get a separate name, a separate number. And how am I going to know this? By looking up. And he showed him, actually. Because Moses was a little confused. He said, I don't get, what do you mean when the moon is born? I don't get it. So he tells him, look, I want you to look up there. When all of a sudden, see a little sliver of the moon appears, that's going to be what we call Rosh Chodesh. That's the beginning of the new month. And from there, you count 29 or 30 days, and then it appears again. It's an incredible system because never in history has it not happened. The moon shrinks and grows, shrinks and grows. I mean, and it's always the same. It's always the same thing. Now we've come to the conclusion that a lunar month, can only be 29 or 30 days. That's it. So in the olden days, how did they do that? Moses is eventually going to pass on. What are they going to do? No one else was around. So Moses taught, just like he taught all the other. If you come to the Talmud class, you'll know a little bit more about this system. That's on Tuesday nights at 7:30. But that's a little pitch. But you know what? But here, how do we know? So Moses taught Aaron's sons and the Sanhedrin, that this is what's going to happen. When you see the moon like this, there's a little sliver. That's you pronounce the new month, Rosh Chodesh. Now, what if it's cloudy in Jerusalem, and where the Sanhedrin, the high court, sits? So witnesses used to come. So for thousands of years, Jews have relied on witnesses to come to Jerusalem to proclaim that they've seen the new moon, and then the court announces new month. Okay. But how do we know that they're not liars? Maybe people want a little bit of exposure, like, if we meet today, maybe they like to get their moment in the sun by saying we saw the new moon, but they really didn't see. So the Sanhedrin had a series of questions. Which direction was it facing? How was it up? Was it down? Was it on the south? Was it in the north? Was it in the east? And there is a system. I don't want to go into it, but one of the hardest sections of Maimonides' laws are the laws of Kiddush HaChodesh, the laws of sanctifying the new moon. It's so complicated because it takes into account Greek astronomy. So you have to be like an astronomer, and you got to figure out exactly all the degrees. I mean, it was incredible how he was able to do this. I mean, scholars have literally spent years just trying to master those 20 chapters that he did. Like, let me just write this down here, and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So that was the first mitzvah the Jews got. So now we know we're running into something else. God is throwing here us a curveball. What do you mean by a curveball? Means that we thought we were sitting in Egypt, and we thought to ourselves, hey, Moses is coming and getting us out. Great, perfect, we're going to be out. Just imagine like your kids in school, and you're in 7th grade, and the middle of June comes, and it's the last day of school, right? So it's almost like being a slave in Egypt, right? I mean, elementary school. And you're waiting and waiting for that clock to tick. And it's a short day, usually the last day of school, because you didn't have any classes. It was just saying goodbye to the teachers and, getting your books. So school was over, let's say at 12 o'clock, and you're waiting for 10, tick, 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 tick. As soon as that bell rings at 12 o'clock, what are you doing? Right. You are so out of there so fast that you probably are the fastest man on earth at that one moment. The last thing you're doing is saying, you know what, teacher? We didn't finish everything we started during the year. You think possibly you can give us some extra work over the summer? Yeah, right. Who said that? No. 2 people. No and Buddy. Nobody ever said, teacher, you know what, we miss you so much. Let's spend an extra few hours here going over that last algebra equation. Could you explain it a little better? No one said that, right? The Jews thought to themselves, hey, you know what? We're going out free. What does that mean? We're free, right? We're going to be free. That means free to do whatever you like. Comes along, God says, no. This is going to be a different kind of a relationship. You are going to go free. That is true. Meaning you're going to be free from Pharaoh and the taskmasters. But now you have a different Lord over you. Who's that? Me. Exactly. Hashem. And I'm going to give you some mitzvahs, I'm going to give you some commandments, and you're going to follow those commandments. So the Jews already see that it's not going to be as easy as it was. And what are those commandments? So I want you to remember this. God says to him, today is the first day, so today is Rosh Chodesh Nisan, okay, that he's talking to him, because today is going to be the first day. He says when the 10th comes, the 10th of the month, okay, comes, I want all of you to go out and buy yourself a lamb. Okay? So the 10th of the month was a Saturday. So 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Okay? I want you to hold it. No. Yeah. The 10th of the month, I want you to hold it. And then in the evening of the 14th, I want everybody, okay, to take that lamb and to slaughter it. And then and eat it. Now, I don't know about you, but I come from a small family. It was me, my sister, and my parents. There's no way we're eating a lamb. I mean, have you seen the size of a lamb? I mean, if you get a small little lamb, you can't finish the whole lamb. So you got to invite other people. So then include other people. So everybody who's going to be included in the Perelmuter lamb has to be accounted for. So you have to send out an invitation list, call us before you show up, and then we know how many people. And once you're assigned to this particular lamb, you can't change. You can't change. You can change, like you get an invitation from Perelmuter, next thing you know, you get an invitation from Jack. What are you going to do? Well, you already said to Perelmuter, yes, but you'd rather go to Jack. Sephardim, they do better, marinate. Ashkenazim, let's be honest, okay, they're not exactly so, such great. So you want to go to Jack. So you call me up and you say, I have COVID. Rabbi, I'm so sorry. I came down with COVID. I'm so sorry. I don't want to spread it. I know how it works already when someone says, Rabbi, I'd love to come to your class, but I'm sniffling and I don't want to give it to everybody. I said, no, don't worry. We all want it. Just come. Okay? Don't worry. Just show up. So the Torah is very specific. The Torah is very specific that once you were already settled, now, when can you change? Till the animal is slaughtered, you can change positions. Okay, once the animal is slaughtered, that means on the 14th, once already it's done, then you can't leave the house. You have to be in the house that you are accounted for. So, okay, so you have to remember that. Now, once you take that lamb, so that means that you have to have it for 4 days and watch it. So it's there with you Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Wednesday the 14th and the evening, you have to, that's going to be Wednesday night, you're going to slaughter it. And so where do you have it? So many Jews, because it was very special to them, they put it in their bedroom. Can you imagine? They had to keep the lamb in their bedroom for 4 days with the bleeding and all of that stuff. They kept it there for 4 days. And on Wednesday night, just before sundown, they must have learned very quickly the laws of slaughtering, which I don't think they were too careful about that. They slaughtered it, but God was very specific how to eat it. I don't want you to cook it, and I don't want you to boil it. I want it only roasted on a spit, on a spit with a rolling spit with all of its innards inside. So what they did was they took the lamb, cut it open, took out the innards, cleaned them, because you can't cook the innards without cleaning them. Stuffed them back into the lamb, sewed up the lamb, and then roasted it. Only roasted. If you cooked it, if you boiled it, it was no good. You're out. It had to be roasted fully. Then that was not it. Then I want you to take some matzah. Now what's matzah? The flatbread that you cook very quickly. That and horseradish. Grind up some horseradish. Okay? Take that. That's going to be done. And now you can eat other stuff as well. God didn't say, hey, if you want a little gefilte fish beforehand, or if you want some other stuff, you want a salad, but this has to be eaten. So the matzah that we have today is not the matzah they ate there. Forget about it. The matzah we have today, the flat, hard things, that came much later in the Middle Ages. What they ate back there was more like a lafa. You ever go to Israel? But it couldn't rise. It was a thin little lafa. The matzah was much more malleable. So what they did was they took the matzah, they took a piece of the lamb, they put it inside, they took some horseradish, grated it over the matzah, put the other side, and they ate it. Okay? Now that was among the other things they had during the meal, but that was the response. Then, you had to have a cloak, and you had to have your a gartel, they called it, like a waistband around the cloak, and a staff, and your shoes. Because you got to be ready. Because you never know, that night, God is going to come down, and He's going to strike the firstborn, and then you got to be ready to go. Because once the firstborn start dying, we know what the Egyptians are going to do? They're going to chase you out. So eat the meal, eat it quickly. God wants you to eat it very quickly, because you never know when you're going to have to leave. Okay? So think about this. So this is Wednesday night, because at midnight, when it strikes, boom. Now, I'm not finished yet. Oh, you think, okay, fine. No, I'm not done yet. Where are you going? I want you to take from the blood and put it on the doorpost and on the 2 lintels. So why? When I send the angel of destruction to strike the Egyptians, what he's going to do is Passover. Now you know where the word Passover comes from. You see, Passover, and he's not going to. As a matter of fact, even if an Egyptian, it goes so far that even if an Egyptian tries to hide in your house, like let's say there were Egyptians that once they heard that God is going to strike the Egyptians, they'll say, well, let's go hang out at Perelmuter. He's Jewish. God's not going. It didn't help them. They got him too. He also died. In hiding in Perelmuter's house. Nonetheless, this was it. This was the mitzvah. Okay, so thank God, God eliminated later on the 4 prior days. So later on when we came to Israel, because in the desert, all 40 years in the desert, the Jews only brought one more Pesach sacrifice. For 39 years, they did not. Joshua then enters into the land of Israel. They reestablish bringing the sacrifice. But all of this, bringing it on the 10th day and holding it and doing that was eliminated. Just get yourself a lamb, slaughter it on the 14th, eat it in the evening, and that's it. Okay? Now, you think that's it, right? No. Are you kidding me? The tractate of Psachim, the tractate in the Talmud, which deals with the laws of Passover, is over 100 folios long. I mean, it's this thick. Okay? All the different rules and regulations, because we're not done yet. Because while you're eating the matzah, and you're eating the lamb, and you're eating the horseradish, I want you that night to tell the story. You tell your story over and over again to your kids, and then four times in the Torah tells us, tell your kids, tell your children, and if they don't know, you tell them, and if they ask, this is what you should say. So then the Haggadah develops, you see, it's talking to the 4 sons, the wise one, the wicked one, the simpleton, and the one that doesn't know anything. I don't know why he's not a simpleton too, but at least the simpleton and the guy that doesn't know anything, those 4 things. Okay, we're finished, right? Is it enough? No! Are you kidding me? No, there's more rules. Okay. What else? Now, because you're eating matzah, and you're going to be eating very quickly, like we say in Haggadah, why do we eat the matzah? Because our forefathers left very, very quickly, even though that night they had matzah, they didn't leave very quickly. You had the whole 14. Okay, but that's a different story. When we get closer to Pesach, maybe we'll talk about that. Okay? But because we left very quickly, we ran out of Egypt, you know what? We eat the matzah and all, okay. Since you're eating matzah, I don't want you to eat any leaven. What's leaven? Leaven is when the dough rises. How does the dough rise? Well, there's a number of different ways how it rises. Number one, you could put some leavening agent in it. What would be a leavening agent? Would be yeast. Thank you very much. So that's prohibited. Yeast, or you just let it rise. It means you make the dough and just don't do anything with it. You just let it rise. You are prohibited from having any leaven in your house. But I know a few people that their names are leaven. I kicked them out for Pesach. It says, your name is Yosha Levin. Get out. Sorry, I can't have you in my house during Pesach. Come back after Pesach. Okay, so you can't have any leaven in your house. Any leaven in your house. Okay, but what is leaven? So Moses has to go through them. Okay, let's go through this. Anything that rises. Okay, anything that's made. Bread, yes. Crackers, yes. Donuts, yes. Pretzels, yes. French bread, yes. Everything that's leavened. What's not so hard than leavened? Okay? Anything that's leavened. How do we get leaven? 2 ways. 1, with yeast. Number 2, you let it rise. Okay. Now, just to show you that I'm serious about this, I don't want any leaven in your house for 7 days. 7 days, no leaven. Means before you leave Egypt, you got to clean on all the whatever you have in there, and only matzah. Only eat matzah for 7 days. Now, we of course in America added 1 extra day, not because of America, but we added an extra day. We actually do 8 days of no leaven, but 8 days no leaven. And if you have any leaven, you're cut off. And you are cut off from your people. It's one of the dire sins of having anything leavened on Pesach. That's why you notice before Pesach, everyone goes wild. They go nuts. You know what? You'll clean your house under the table, under the couches, under the beds, behind the books, behind here. I can't tell you. And then if you're living in a Hasidic household, they line everything up with silver foil. Your house looks like a spaceship. Everything is silver. You're about to take off. I mean, people go nuts. They don't eat. They don't sleep. It's crazy. Okay, why? Because even the smallest, minutest amount of leaven in your house will constitute. So not only do we get rid of the leaven, anything else we burn. Whatever we find, we burn. And then anything else we sell. to a non-Jew. We find a non-Jew on the street and we sell him anything. No, that's not, we don't do that. But we do sell it away, whatever we want to keep. And that's, so now, are we finished yet? No, there's more. No. Okay, that's the rules of Pesach in a nutshell. That's what Moses tells the Jews before we do it. Now, let's analyze a little bit. Number one, why does he want a lamb? The answer is because lambs were considered deities in Egypt. They worshipped lambs. So you would think, okay, does it make any sense whatsoever to ask the Jews to go out there and to start sacrificing the deities of their enemies? And the answer is absolutely. Because what does God want to show? That I'm the true master of the universe. I'm the true Lord. It's only worthy to worship me. So therefore you're going to go. So imagine this. You're going out into the marketplace. You tell the vendor there, I'd like to buy a lamb. He asks you, oh, why are you interested in lamb? You've never been interested in lamb before? Well, you see, we're going to take the lamb, and on the 14th of night, we're going to kill it. Just like God is going to kill your firstborn. Okay? Now, that takes a lot of courage, right? That takes courage to the point of self-sacrifice. Means you got to go out there. Like, I can't even think, I've always been trying to think of an appropriate example here in America. The only thing I could think of is sacrificing our cell phones. Because a cell phone is sacrosanct here in America. I mean, you could ask anything from anybody, but don't give up your cell phone. So you'll die. Or, so I'm thinking, imagine if the Jews all of a sudden decided, just one day of the year, we take our cell phones and smash them. We go out there and we have a ceremony. We take a brand new iPhone that's $1,300. Right? And start bashing and smashing the cell phones. People would look at us like we're nuts. Like, why are you doing this? Oh, because God told us to. Okay, now it makes sense. Okay, now it makes perfect sense. The Americans would certainly understand that logic. I mean, no question about that. All right? So that's what God asked him to do. Please, and take him into your house so people can see. And for the next few days, now what happened? What happened? The firstborn, when they heard that this is going on, that they heard that Moses had threatened Pharaoh and said, I'm going to kill your firstborn, they were not happy. Well, obviously they're not happy because they're the firstborn, and Moses batted 1,000. 9 times he came to Pharaoh. 9 times he warned him that I'm going to bring some plague upon you. And how many times did he deliver? 9. You know what kind of batting average that is? Everybody in their wildest dreams would think, 1,000. You're batting 1,000. So the firstborn went to Pharaoh, and they said to Pharaoh, let us go. Let us go. And Pharaoh was obstinate. Pharaoh said, no, I'm not letting you go. And don't let us go. Let them go, I meant. Let the Jews out. So Pharaoh said, no, I was obstinate. He was stubborn. So there was a war. They said there was a little civil war between Pharaoh's army and the firstborn, and many of them died during that battle. That's why we have a little bit, we kind of commemorate that battle on Shabbos HaGadol, on the Shabbos before Pesach. We call it Shabbos HaGadol because a miracle happened that civil war started. The other thing we do, I don't know, and anybody here a firstborn? Anybody here oldest in the family? Firstborn in the family? Okay. What? Firstborn. We're not going to get into this. Why are you getting me into trouble for? Did I say firstborn? So the firstborn, you should know that the custom is that on the eve of Passover means you fast. You fast. Because why? Because God granted you life. And so therefore, it's like a fast day, except that we found ways around that. We finish a tractate of the Talmud, make a little party, you invite the firstborns, they eat, and then the rest of the day they're good to go. Okay. Now you think it's finished, right? Okay, you think, oh, come on, there can't be any more rules to this. It is. So Moses says, okay, I hear you, and now I'm going to pick it up. After Moses is now going to give the rules and regulations to the Jews. Okay. So he hears this all from God, and God says, remember, I don't want it leavened, I want them. So how do you make the matzah? So if you ever went into a real, this is what we call shmura matzah. I'm not talking about the matzah that you buy in Vaughn's or, Rouse's. That's called machine-made matzah. That's by machines. Those machines crank out like thousands of pounds of matzah every single day. All the way. But we kind of tend to, on Passover, to use what we call shmura matzah. Watched matzah. What do I mean by watched matzah? Meaning from the time that it's harvested, there's rabbis out in the field that watch how they're harvested, that no water comes into contact with them. They're bagged in these special bags, sealed, written on them shmura matzah, shin mem, so shmura matzah. These are good, so they're only kernels. They get shipped in a special container to the bakeries. In the bakeries, these kernels are then grinded down. Everybody looks at them. Okay, fine. You grind them down then to make it into flour, and then there's a whole process starts. So I think David was with us when we went to New York a number of years ago. We went to visit one of those matzah bakeries, and they have these long tables like this, and women, men, they're all holding these. What do you call those? Rolling pins. Thank you, rolling pins. There's a little and rolling pins. They have to be perfectly clean. I mean, perfectly clean. On one side is the flour pourer, the other side is the water pourer, and in the middle is the kneader. Okay, so he calls out flour, and the guy in this room, which will never see this guy in this room, because God forbid the flour should touch the water, says flour. Pours the flour into this big basin. Water, he pours the water. This guy at the speed of light kneads it together. It takes him a couple of minutes to get a dough going. He grabs the dough. Bingo! A clock starts. This has to get in there before 18 minutes. Bingo! So he takes the dough, throws each one a piece. These people who are the rollers, they roll it out fast. They call ready. A guy with a long pole comes. He takes the matzah. He rolls that's how you get the holes in it. He rolls the holes. He puts it over this long stick. 5 matzahs. There's an oven built over there that reaches up to about 1,500 degrees, extremely hot. He rolls in the thing, rolls it out. The matzah is made. Click. 13 minutes, 10 seconds. Okay, all right. Those matzahs are kosher. He takes the matzahs out. All of the rolling pins then go into a special bin. Can't use them again because God forbid there's a little piece of dough there that goes into a special bin. Some guy takes these rollers, brings them into another room where the guys are there with sandpaper, and they sandpaper down the rollers, throw them into a kosher bin. Those go back onto the floor while the other ones go back into this. Everybody takes a little breather after one thing. Okay, next. Okay, flour, water, same thing all over again. Here it is. Bang, boom, 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 boom. Everybody rolls it out. Back to the guy. All done in precisely before 18 minutes. And yeah, he's not happy with the process. Jay.
No, it's 18 minutes.
Oh, there you got to go. Okay. All right. He's got to go. He's got to go. So that's what we call shmura matzah. That's called shmura matzah. Then they pack everything up. They put it into boxes and they distribute it out to the whole country. And there's, a few different bakeries in New York and in Montreal and Ukraine. And of course, Israel puts out thousands of pounds of shmura matzah. And that's the process of it. Very labor intensive, all done by hand. There's no machines involved. Everybody does their things. Now in Crown Heights, where the Chabad community is, what you can do is, because people are very particular and they want to make sure that the matzah, because you heard what happens over here, the matzah making can be rented out. So let's say the study group at the JCC, let's just say the study group at the JCC decides that we would like to bake our own matzah. We're very particular. We don't want anybody, we're not going to buy off the rack matzah. We want special JCC Long Beach matzah. We'll call the owner of the bakery. We'll say we want Wednesday to come in and we'll do the work. Okay. So I say everybody, Wednesday we're baking matzah, which my wife's family has one day that they bake. We all gather at the bakery and everybody's assigned jobs. Now, you're not going to be the rollers because you're not expert enough. But what you're going to do is you're going to sit in that room sanding the paper. Sanding the paper. You're going to be the ones doing the jobs, making sure that everything is okay, except for the rolling of the matzah and the baking of the matzah, because you have to be an expert. But everybody else, the packing, the schlepping, the counting, all of that stuff we'll do. We pay the owner of the bakery. We take the matzah we baked for that day, which could be a lot of pounds. And we distribute it each to those. And many families do that. Many families. The best matzah, of course, is baked when? The day of Pesach. So who gets that matzah? The Rebbe. So on that day, he's the capo, the tutti capo. He himself didn't come to bake the matzah, even though his predecessors, like his father-in-law and grandfather, they used to come, but he himself didn't come. But on that day, a special committee comes there, guys, they bake the special matzah, and they deliver it to the Rebbe, and that's the matzah he uses, and also he used to distribute matzah. For people that are going out of town, he would give them some of his matzah, but that matzah is called Ersht Oven. It's baked from the first oven of the day, and that's the way it is. Now, there's another name for this matzah, and it's called lechem oini. It's called poor man's bread. You know why? After you pay for it, you're a poor man. Okay? Because unlike the 5 pounds of matzah that you can buy at Ralph's for $5.99, this is usually about $20, $25 a pound and up. And up. Well, we get it a little better because we buy, when my colleague, my friend Rabbi Newman buys at the Hebrew Academy, we buy like 250 pounds for the whole community, so we get it at a little better price, maybe $17 or $18 a pound. But you could go up there to $50, $60 a pound if you want special matzah. Think about this, $50, $60 a pound of matzah. That's more than, I don't want to mention illegal drugs here because you think I know the price. It's more than gold almost. So here you have the matzah. That's the process of shmura matzah, of making the matzah. So here is now Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay. So Moshe says to them, I want you to do this. Go and draw for yourself one of the flocks of your family and slaughter the Pesach offering. That makes sense. No, that's what God said to him. Now, how are you going to do this? You shall take a bundle of hyssop. You know what hyssop is? It's this long stalk of things, and dip it into the blood that's in the basin. So it means this is something that God did not mention him to do, but he's telling them to do it. You'll catch the blood in a vessel, you'll take the hyssop in the basement, and you have to kind of whip it, onto the door, on the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with some of the blood. No man shall enter in the house until you don't leave the house until the morning. When God says to you, leave, but until then time, don't go out of your house. You're stuck, because if you go out, all bets are off. All bets are off, because God is going to send his angel of destruction, and there's going to be a lot of death that night. I want you to stay safe and sound in your sanctuary. Okay, so don't go out anywhere until I give you because God is going to pass into Egypt and smite Egypt, and then he'll see the blood on the lintel, and he's going to pass over, he won't do anything. And then your children are going to ask, what is this all about? And you're going to say to them, you know what? This is what it is, etc., etc., etc. And you're going to, and you'll be okay. All right. Skip a few chapters. He says like this. Then he reiterates. God says to Moses, again, I want to make it clear. This is the decree for the Pesach offering. This is what I want you to do. First of all, no alien person may eat from it. Meaning you can't, if you're Jewish or you belong to the clan. But you can't invite guests to eat for it. This is specifically a Jewish custom, and it's for Jews, of Jews, by Jews. Okay, fine. That's numero uno. Every slave, there was slavery in those days, I don't want to get into it. Well, another time maybe we'll go into it. Who belongs to you, number one, you should circumcise them. Because if it belongs to your family, you need to circumcise them. Because if you're not circumcised, you can't eat from it. Okay? All right? Now, let's get into some. Here, it must be, in one house shall it be eaten, as I explained to you before, that if you're signed up with the Perelmuters, you can't say, you know what, I might have the appetizer at the Perelmuters and then the main course at the Barrows. No, you got to eat everything in one house. You can't cheat, like, some guys go for 3 meals. You can't. One house. You shall not remove any of the meat from the house to the outside. I want you not to take any of the meat and go outside with it, because who knows what's happening. And you shall not break a bone in it. But we'll get back to that in a second. The entire assembly of Israel shall perform it. Okay, that's it. Those are the rules. Okay, Moses tells the rules, they do it, everybody's happy, we've done it. Then we're left with guys who are wondering, let's analyze this for a second. Why? Why all this bother? And especially why all of the details? Like this last one really throws you for a loop. No, you don't break a bone in it. Well, why shouldn't I break a bone in it? Has anybody here ever eaten marrow from the bone?
Oh yeah.
It's a delicacy. Yeah. You go to a restaurant today and you ask for beef marrow, it costs you a fortune. It's a delicacy. So I say, why shouldn't you break a bone in it? Okay. Once upon a time, There was a fellow that lived in Barcelona. Has anybody ever been to Barcelona here? Yeah. Barcelona, beautiful city, Barcelona. I've never been, but you don't have to, because today you have Google. Google take you on a virtual tour of Barcelona. It's almost like you're there. And if you watch the cooking channels and you hit Barcelona, I'm like there. They eat a lot of pork in Spain. A lot of pork they eat in Spain. All right? So, there was a fellow by the name of Rabbi of Barcelona. We think he wrote a series of books, and they were called the Sefer HaChinuch. I've mentioned this a number of times before, but it's good. What is a Sefer HaChinuch? It's called the Book of Education. It's a 5 volumes. Every volume goes to one of the, well, I shouldn't say really, it doesn't fit exactly, but there's 5 volumes, and each chapter of the Torah he comments on. But he doesn't comment on any of the narratives. That's what he was not interested in. He was interested only in the rules and regulations. 613 rules. He has 613 chapters in the book. And they're broken down into, how did he do it? So he invited his children who were with him and they were growing up, and he wanted to come up with an ingenious way how to excite them into studying with him. How would he do it? So he took each commandment and said, let's do research on each commandment, and began to develop a theology around each commandment. Why we would do it, what's the purpose, who's responsible, how's they responsible. He had the benefit of having before him written already, the Rambam and others had written before him, so he gathered all of the necessary commentaries before, and he studied it. And he left us as we think it's him, we think it's Rabbi Levi of Barcelona, although it's not certified. If you go to Sefer HaChinuch and you open it up, they'll write, we believe it was written by this man because we don't know for certain. Unlike other works, Maimonides, Nachmanides, and others, Morale of Prague, and everybody, we know that they've written these works. We think that it's them. But regardless, it doesn't matter who did it. It's an incredible work. It's incredible. I mean, if you really want to get into the ideas behind the mitzvahs. Now, a lot of them is already his own conjecture. I mean, like, I'm going to read you something that he wrote about, particularly this. So now he tells his children, he sits down, it's Parshat's Bo, they're sitting around the table, and they come to the mitzvah of don't break a bone. His kid said, Tati, how come can't break a bone? We sit, sometimes, people break the chicken bones and eat the marrow from the chicken bones. How come the Jews were not allowed to break the bones, at the Passover sacrifice? So he tells them like this, I'll tell you why, children. Imagine this for a second. Imagine, before I go into the reading this, imagine this. If you would be invited to the king's palace for a meal, right? Let's say you were invited to the king's palace for a meal, and they delivered to you a plate, okay? And the plate was chicken or beef, whatever it is. Would you stand in front of the king and start cracking the bones in front of the king? No, of course you wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't you do that? The marrow is the same in the palace as it is in our house, because in front of the king and the queen, you act completely differently, right? This is a majesty, and you have to act with respect, and you're going to do all of those things. So if you would do that, he tells his children, so if you would do that when you're at a physical king's, what is a physical king? Today's here, tomorrow's gone. Here at the Seder, who are we inviting? Hashem. This is a holy convocation. The Seder, when we're eating the Pesach sacrifice, this is a holy convocation. Hashem is sitting here with us and enjoying us. How much more so shall we feel to ourselves that, number one, that we're special? We got out of Egypt and we're free people and we're sitting and we're eating the Pesach sacrifice and we're enjoying the Pesach sacrifice. But you have to eat with dignity. There's dignity involved in this, and that's why cracking a bone is not dignified. Come on. It's not like you're eating with your friends on a Wednesday afternoon. This is a special soda, a special feast, and so that's what. So that he started off with that. That was to me, I thought that Dayenu, that would be enough. Then he goes on. And this, my friends, is maybe one of the most critical elements when he goes into this particular mitzvah. It's so strange because there are many more important, I wouldn't say important in the sense, all mitzvahs are important, but let's be honest, not cracking the bone on a Pesach sacrifice is one of the minor mitzvahs. And we're not talking about idolatry, we're not talking about, prayer, we're not talking about, we're talking about cracking a bone. But then he goes into a whole theology and the idea of this. Listen to what he writes. He says this. Know, my children, that people are influenced by their actions. Okay? Meaning that your actions are most important. And their intellect and emotional life is conditioned by the things that we do, good or bad. Okay? So let's just stop here just for a second. What he's saying over here. He's saying, my children, I want you to know that in life there's two things. There's nature and nurture. Right, Lynn? Nature and nurture. Nature is what you're born with. You're born with an Einstein mind. That's a gift. Then in a million years you can sit there and you can cry and plead. Forget about it. The Rambam, Maimonides, was given a mind. The Rebbe. This is a gift. That's nature. You're born with a certain amount of intellect, a certain disposition, a certain character. That's the way it is. Now, with that, you add nurture. Meaning that if you have good parents and parents that want the best for you, they're going to train you. Train you in the ways that they want you to grow up. That is an addition to the nature that you have. How are we going to nurture this child? What is the most important thing that we can do for nurturing this child? Is teaching them how to act well. Right? How to act well and good. Meaning that if your actions are solid, like he says, that your intellect and your emotional life are going to be conditioned by the things that you do. And you, my friends, he tells his children, have the choice to do good or to do bad. Now, if you're a good parent, you challenge your child, you tell them, you teach them, hey, you know what? When you play with toys, what's the best thing to do afterwards? Put them away, right? After you sit down before a meal, what's things that we do? We say a blessing. After the meal, we say grace after meals. You're in someone's home, what do you do to the host and the hostess? Thank them. You say, please, may I have some more, or whatever it is. After you finish, you go put away the dish. Actions are the ones that are going to condition us. We think exactly the opposite. If you ask people, they say, no, it's from your intellect and your emotional state, that's how you're going to act. And he says exactly the opposite. He says motion creates emotion. Meaning that, you know what, right across here is a staircase. If you take the staircase up to the second floor, there's a torture chamber up there. Okay? That torture chamber is called a gym. Okay? There is where people are put up there. If you don't behave in this class, we send you up there and we make you stay there for an hour. Okay? Up there are these trained people who kill you. Okay? Their job is to bring you to an inch of your life, but not kill you, because if they kill you, you won't pay any more membership. So that's no good. Okay? So we think to ourselves that, you know what? In my mind, when I'm ready, I have to be, in a zone. Then I'm going to go up the stairs. I'll register. I'll get in my clothes. I'll come out there. I'll go on a machine. Stay for 30 seconds at a slow pace. Pick up 3 weights. I cracked a sweat. I'm out. I'm free. Okay? That's what we think. What he's saying here is exactly the opposite. Don't think. Don't think. Get up there. That's the first thing. Motion creates emotion. You want to feel good? Get up there. Get up there, start running on the treadmill, start lifting, whatever you do. Then, once you're up there and you say to yourself, why am I doing this? All of a sudden you start to feel a little better. You start to feel, look what I accomplished. I never in a million years thought to myself that I can be able to do that. And now I'm on the treadmill and I'm sweating a little bit, and everybody knows, you know what? You're losing the most dreaded word in English language, calories. I'm losing calories. Every step, another calorie is disappearing. The enemies within my body, those things that are killing me. So every step, and now I'm running and I'm going faster and I'm losing weight and I'm feeling better, and I come out, I feel like $1 billion. Now, what was the critical decision here? The critical decision here was, don't overthink it. We think to ourselves, when I'm good and ready, then I'm going to go. No. The same thing is true with Judaism. When am I going to start to learn how to read Judaism? When I have time, I'll retire, I'll sell my business, I'll go on a world cruise, and then I'm going to go visit there, and then I'm going to do it. No. Start, and you'll see that motion creates emotion. So action, he writes, action is the one that really influences. And then he goes on to say, you can see that there are people that are thoroughly bad people. They're just terrible people. They don't give, they're nasty, they're all this. But one thing they're very careful with is their actions. Meaning they always seem to do the right thing. Okay? So in the shul, when the rabbi gets up and says, you know, ladies and gentlemen, there's a little problem this week. There was rain. The roof is leaking. Now I got an estimate from the roofer. It's going to be $20,000 to repair the roof. We need to raise the $20,000. Okay, do I have anybody that's willing to come up with, let's say, a $5,000 gift will get us going here in Shul today? This guy who's a cheapo from cheapos land, because in his mind he's no good, he raises his hand. Okay, the next day, somebody who tickled him behind him gets killed, but we'll not talk about that. Okay, he raises his hand for $5,000 to give. Why? Why? Even though that inside he doesn't want to, but he knows he's been trained to do the right thing. He does the right thing, meaning that, he doesn't care, but when he sees somebody opens the door for them, he just does the right thing. So even though his insides might be rotten, but he's very careful. Guess what happens? Rabbi Levi writes, eventually, takes time, all of his insides will change. Everything inside will change for him. You know what? At first it was hard to give the charity. It was first to be a nice guy. It was hard to give a compliment. It was hard to do the right thing. But you know what? Guess what? If you train yourself to do the right thing, just do the right thing, guess what happens to your insides? You happen to become a nicer person, a better person, a more charitable person, a more likable person. And you know what? It's so true. We see this. We know that this is true. Now, know orthoprax. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. The same thing is the opposite. You can have a person that is such a nice guy, so soft inside, such a lovable teddy bear, does everything wrong, doesn't do anything good, nothing, does not charitable, not kind, nothing, but inside he's a sweet guy. Everybody in Shul loves this guy because he's a nice guy, does nothing good. What happens eventually to his insides? They rot. Because you keep doing the wrong thing. You keep over and over and over again, you do the wrong thing. He gives an example over here that he doesn't even know how propitious it was. He writes about people that start off doing things that are that are unsavory. What he's really talking about is the guards at the concentration camps. Why is it like, people have expounded on this? Why is that? Because the guards, what happened during the Holocaust? During the Holocaust, Hitler and the Nazis never had an idea to kill all of the Jews. Why would kill all the Jews? Why don't they get rid of the Jews? So in Germany, they kind of like when he took over, they pushed the Jews out. That's how Einstein got here. All the other German Jews got here. Get out. After they captured, the war started in 1939, and they captured a lot of land. They captured Poland and then Ukraine, all of these things. They kept going. They had what's called Einsatzgruppen, meaning that they were going to kill the Jews, like Babi Yar, for example. Everybody knows, familiar with Babi Yar. That's in the Ukraine, where they killed over a weekend 35,000 Jews over a weekend. How did they do that? They dig these ditches and they just shot them. And you've seen, I don't want to get too graphic, and they put in ditches and they keep shooting. It didn't work. First of all, for a number of different reasons. One was because the soldiers themselves were buckling at this. I mean, you know what it means to shoot a lady with the baby in her hands? I mean, you have to be an insane person to do that. So they canceled that program. Second of all, they were using bullets, which come on, we need the bullets and all of that stuff. So they came up with the final solution. And that was that. They're going to build concentration camps, and it's going to be efficient, and that's going to go. So what happened in the beginning? In the beginning, the guards were very reluctant. Come on, squeeze it, put innocent people into a gas chamber, do it. But guess what happened by the end? It came to them like second nature. They didn't look at the Jews even as people anymore. The Jews to them were like vermin. Like you step on a cockroach, or even that's the way they looked at it. So he writes over here, six centuries before the Nazis, he writes this in a thing that when people who are constantly involved in nasty actions, even though that they themselves may be very queasy at the beginning, I don't like to do it, I really shouldn't do it. Guess what happens at the end? At the end, you don't care. You become You become numb to it. You become numb. Some are even glad. I mean, some, the cruel ones, were loved of this. That's why in the Nuremberg trials, something was very interesting in the Nuremberg trials. When the lawyers were questioning the Nazi commandants, all of these who were involved in crimes against humanity. We're not talking about the average soldier, the average German soldier that was we're not talking about those people who were involved in literally, so it says that they asked them, how could you do it? Their answer was, we're following orders. Okay, so if you're following orders, let's understand this. So if someone escaped from the camp, okay, now you really didn't want to do it, right? You didn't want to do anything, okay? But someone escaped from the camp, what did you do? Well, what did we do? We sent out people and dragged them back and hung. Oh, really? Was that part of the orders that you had to do? No, but that was something you wanted to do. Meaning that if someone escaped, even you're a nice guy, you should be happy, right? You didn't want to do it. That just proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that that this is garbage, just following orders. These people were trained in order to do this over and over and over again. And Rabbi Levi from Barcelona, 6 centuries before, predicted this is going to happen here with the Nazi guards here. Why? Because action defines who you are. Your intellect and your emotions and your morals and your ethics will follow the things that you do. So if you decide that you are going to be a good guy, a good person, and do the right thing, guess what happens to you eventually? You become a good person. You train yourself to say good morning, how are you, thank you, please, be a nice guy, come in front, I'll open the door for you, whatever it is, all of these things. So that's how we explain to his children why there are so many commandments. You want to know why God gave us the commandments? It's because he wanted us to be trained in doing the right thing. So when you can't crack the bone, it's telling us it's not only about the bone. It's about the dignity, how you sit at a table with other people, how you eat. For years, there were rabbis that refused to eat a sandwich. Refused to eat a sandwich. Why? It's undignified. You ever see those sandwiches now they have in restaurants now? These things that go like this, you have to smash them down and they drip all over your face. So rabbis were very reluctant to eat sandwiches. Why? Because you have to open up your mouth and you have to stick it in like a cow. Like when we would chew gum when I was a kid, our rabbis would say, look at malagerinik. What's a malagerinik? It's like the cow that's chewing gum. You're like a cow. Okay, they didn't even like us chewing gum at that far. Why? Dignity. Dignity. It's the way you look at yourself. So if you look at yourself as a refined person, someone that's dignified, you eat quiet, and eat slowly, quietly, with dignity, guess what happens to you? Eventually you become dignified. Even if you're not. Even if you're that still raging bull that you were as a kid, it slowly but surely evaporates. Because why? You're constantly thinking about doing the right thing. Constantly doing the right thing. Go ahead.
Are orthopraxy and orthodoxy complementary?
It's the same thing, except one means right thinking, one means right practice. Orthodox means right thinking. Orthodox our minds. So orthodox is the right way how to think. That's what I think. Others may say, no. Orthodox is not the right way to think. I happen to think it's the right way to think. You can make your own decision. Orthoprax is doing the right thing. Meaning that even though my theology, maybe, I think there's so stupid, the Seder. The Seder is so dumb. I mean, the way they set it up. First of all, as soon as you come in, what do they give you? Like reading material, right? So you have to read for 2 hours before. The first thing you eat is an onion dipped in salt water. I mean, are you going to get some converts telling me? If this is going to be your menu? Okay, what's the first thing we're going to eat? You have a choice. Parsley or an onion dipped in salt water. Okay? And then what else did you eat there? Till you eat, the first thing you eat is a matzah. And then the second thing you eat is a matzah with horseradish. Oh, a delicacy. A delicacy. Your matzah with horseradish. Okay? So this is, but you train yourself to say to yourself, this is the right thing to do. So that's what Orthodox is telling you, that even though in your mind you may be thinking to yourself, this is so dumb. Go ahead, Jack.
Rabbi, how much time lapsed from the time that God summoned Moses until the Jews were released?
From the first time he met him till at least a year. Was 1 year. Each kind of almost a little less than a year. It said each plague lasted a month.
Okay.
1 week of warning and 3 weeks to take to do it. 1 week of warning and 3 weeks to do it. So it was about a month. The Jews, it tells us, as soon as Moses came with the first plague, blood, work stopped. Slavery stopped. So for that year, the Jews were not under any conditions of slavery. They just lived there. And because don't forget that I had mentioned last week that the plagues themselves were geared towards the Jews just to get them out of their funk. I mean, you're in this for a long time. We estimate that the Jews were under slavery probably about over 120 years, somewhere around that. You could make a kind of an accounting. So it's like 3 or 4 generations that were slaves. So you had to get them out of the funk. It took a long time for Moses to really, and even then, when he got them into the desert, they were like, kvetching, all that. But that's basically what it was. It was about a year. And then the Jews are out. They come out, we think that's it, right? We're done with them. As soon as we get out, the next section starts. Pharaoh finds out they're lost. What do you mean they're lost? For that, we'll have to wait for next week. What do you mean the Jews were lost? Now you're going to have to wait for next week, and we'll pick up the story next week. All right? Okay.